डॉक्टर नरेंद्र जाधव जी, मेडन स्पीच है, ये तय करें कि अभी करना है कि बाद में करना है, पर आपको बोलना है तो कितना बोलना है आप तय करें।
Thank you, sir. It's indeed a great honor as well as a privilege to be here in this August House. This was supposed to be my maiden speech, sir, but I was told that because of the paucity of time, I should speak for 10 minutes. So I would request you not to treat this. I will speak for 10 minutes, but I would request you, sir, not to treat it as my maiden speech.
जितना समय 15 मिनट का समय यदि लेंगे तो फिर मेडन स्पीच हो जाएगा।
Okay,
और यदि नहीं लेंगे तो 10 मिनट में पूरा करेंगे।
Okay. In which case, sir, I would prefer to make it a maiden speech. In which case, sir, I would like to make it a maiden speech for 15 minutes.
कहाँ? वो तो हो गया खत्म। नहीं, वो खत्म हो गया, समय खत्म हो गया। नहीं, वो उनके लिए नहीं है।
Yes. So I will make it a maiden speech for 15
Maiden
minutes.
speech.
Sir, I would like to focus on the macroeconomic strategy underlying this budget 2016-17 and the Appropriation Bill 2016 and the Finance Bill 2016. As a nominated member, not belonging to any political party, it is and would be my endeavor to go beyond party politics and constructively engage with the government. In that spirit, sir, in the present context of the Appropriation Bill and the Finance Bill, I would like to analyze the broader picture without getting into the nitty-gritties and present to this august House my understanding of the macroeconomic strategy behind this budget as a student of economics. While there are many strengths, to be sure, there are some weaknesses as well, and I would like to deal with both. Every budget, sir, invariably has a specific context. There are domestic compulsions, and then there is external environment to deal with. To my mind, sir, this budget had two main challenges. The first challenge was inculcating fiscal discipline in terms of containing the fiscal deficit, even while mitigating the additional burden of the 7th Pay Commission and one rank, one pension. And the second objective was promoting higher and sustainable growth under rather unfavorable external environment. As far as the first challenge is concerned, I am very happy to note that the Honorable Finance Minister has met the fiscal deficit target of 3.9% of GDP for the financial year 2015-16. This fiscal marksmanship is indeed commendable. It may be noted, however, that if you compare the revised estimates with the budget estimates, as has been pointed out here, domestic tax collections were actually lower, disinvestment proceeds were also lower. However, those shortfalls were more than compensated by falling crude oil prices and policy-induced hikes in excise duties, which boosted our indirect tax collection. Nevertheless, I maintain that the fiscal marksmanship that Honorable Finance Minister has shown is truly praiseworthy. Secondly, as a very pleasant surprise, the Honorable Finance Minister has maintained the fiscal roadmap drawn last year. That is to say that he has maintained the fiscal deficit target of 3.5% of GDP for the financial year 2016-17. In doing so, the Honorable Finance Minister has given a very positive signal to the investor community worldwide that we are determined to bring about the necessary fiscal adjustment. Most people, including myself, we had all expected a fiscal slippage and postponement of fiscal adjustment. The Honorable Finance Minister has truly taken everybody by a pleasant surprise. How was this remarkable feat made possible? Especially given the additional burden of the 7th Pay Commission and one rank, one pension. I can think of at least three factors. One is that instead of full provisioning for 7th Pay Commission and one rank, one pension, there is a part provisioning made. The second one, there is a view that there is an overestimation of disinvestment proceeds and also overestimation of spectrum revenue. These assumptions that the Finance Minister has made are very ambitious, but they are not unrealistic. And I do hope that the Honorable Finance Minister will be able to demonstrate the same fiscal marksmanship that he did last year as in this year as well. As far as the second challenge is concerned, that is the challenge of achieving the higher and sustainable growth, the Honorable Finance Minister has taken some very significant initiatives in respect of agriculture and rural economy, infrastructure and investment, reforms in FDI policy, financial sector reforms, and all that. All those initiatives are most welcome. But as we all know, today the Indian economy is the fastest growing economy among all the major economies of the world. No doubt this is a matter of great pride, but it must be noted that our growth rate today is still below our own potential. We can do better, and we must try to do better. I'm convinced that we can accelerate our growth rate further, crossing the magical number of double-digit growth of 10% over the next 3 to 5 years, if and only if we carry out the necessary reforms, especially the reforms in terms of the goods and services taxes. We can get on the high growth trajectory. The question, however, is how is this intended or desired high growth trajectory going to be sustainable over the medium term, as it did in the case of China? China, as we all know, has grown more than 10% per year for more than 25 years in a row. That is why China has now today a size which is 5 times larger than the size of the economy that we have. When would that be possible? I would like to emphasize here that in my view, the high growth trajectory of Indian economy would be sustainable over the medium term if and only if India's economic growth is both participatory and inclusive. Whenever we talk about Achhe Din, it has to be for all the strata of the Indian society, especially the vulnerable sections of our society. This is precisely why we need to give more and urgent attention to social sector spending, which is now emerging as a very serious cause for concern. By social sector spending, sir, I mean the sectors such as education, skill development, health, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and other vulnerable strata of our society. First, about the education and skill development and about the health sector. Regrettably, I do not find a big push in terms of financial allocation to these critical sectors in this and the earlier 2 budgets presented by the Honorable Finance Minister. Many people know that 50 years ago, Kothari Commission had recommended that we ought to be spending on education and skill development something like 6% of our GDP. For a long time, we never crossed 3.5% of our GDP. In the last 10 years, we have raised that proportion, and today we are at little more than 4%, but we have a very long way to go. Same thing about the health sector. In fact, in the health sector, the allocation of health sector remains abysmally low, and it is little over 1%. Sir, I have been hoping for the last 2 years that there would be a big change, a further quantum leap in allocation for education and skill development and allocation on the health sector. That is because our country is going through what is called demographic dividend. The average age of India today is 24 years. In the year 2020, our average age would be 29 years. In 2020, when average age of India is 29 years, the average age of China would be 37, United States would be 38, Western Europe would be 42, 43, and Japan would be 48, 49. Fortuitously, this means that fortuitously we have a large and growing young population. And this young population, the demographic dividend, is a vital force that can really push India's economic growth beyond 10%. But we have to understand that this demographic dividend is not something that is automatic. It needs to be harnessed. For that, we have to put our house in order as far as the education, skill development, and health sectors are concerned. If we do not do that, we would be adding mouths to feed, but not the hands that can work. And in which case, this demographic dividend will turn out into a demographic disaster. Demographic dividend is fortuitous. It is an opportunity which comes once in a lifetime of a nation. And it is this window of opportunity which is going to be available to us for next 15 years or so. If we do not give education, skill development, and health sector its due importance at this critical juncture. If we squander the demographic dividend, sir, the future generations will never forgive us. And that is why education, skill development, and health sector must get a sizable enhancement in budget allocation. Let me now turn to the welfare of Dalits, scheduled castes, and scheduled tribes. Sir, I heartily welcome the allocation of 500 crore for the Stand Up India scheme for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities and women entrepreneurs. But it is nothing more than, it is a move in the right direction, but it is nothing more than a drop in the ocean. I would like to invite the attention of this august House to the extremely poor implementation of scheduled caste sub-plan and the tribal sub-plan year after year. Regrettably, this budget is no exception. There are three major problems with the scheduled caste sub-plan that I can talk about. First, the provision made is inadequate. The principles, the guidelines stated that the central government as well as states must make a provision for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe at least in their proportion, at least equivalent to their proportion in the population of the state or the center. This has never happened. So inadequate provision. Second one, and there was a reference made earlier, very large amount of funds which are earmarked, which are less than the guidelines, what the guidelines say. Very large part of that is merely diverted to other purposes. Diversion of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe funds is a rule, and non-diversion is an exception. In the previous government, there was a committee appointed under my chairmanship, and we made the changes in the guidelines, and that raised the proportion. But however, even today, it remains well below the 16.8% share that the Dalits have in the national population. In this budget, this proportion, in the budget 2016-17, sir, the allocation of funds for the scheduled caste and scheduled caste sub-plan is only 7.6% of GDP instead of 16.8% as per the guidelines. And this shortfall works out to something like 91,000 crores. Mr. Chairman, sir, this is most unfortunate, and it goes against the letter and spirit of the Indian Constitution. Let me remind this august House of the warning given by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar while presenting the final draft of the Indian Constitution on November 25th, 1949. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had emphasized, if we wish to maintain democracy, not merely in form, but also in fact, we must make our political democracy a social democracy as well. Political democracy cannot last unless there lies at the base of it social democracy, unquote. In the same historic speech, Dr. Ambedkar had stated, and I quote, on January 26, 1950, we are going to enter into a life of contradiction. In politics, we will have equality, and in social and economic life, we will have inequality. How long shall we continue to live this life of contradictions? How long shall we continue to deny equality in our social and economic life? Dr. Ambedkar then had warned, and I quote, if we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. We must remove this contradiction at the earliest possible moment, or else those who suffer from inequality will blow up the structure of political democracy that this Constituent Assembly has so laboriously built up. Sir, one more point and I will stop. Sir, there is a widespread impression that the reform process in India is stuck. There is a widespread impression that it is not moving forward. The reason being the delay in passing the Goods and Services Tax Bill. Sir, Goods and Services Tax is the single biggest reform since Dr. Manmohan Singh launched the so-called new economic policy in the aftermath of the unprecedented crisis of 1991. The debate on the Goods and Services Tax is going on for years. It is hard to say that party politics is not the major obstacle in the passage of GST. When the UPA government introduced it, it was opposed by the NDA. Now in the revised form, NDA has introduced it and the UPA has been opposing it. Do we not know? Fair enough, I'm about to finish. Do we not know that do we not know the saying that an eye for eye would make the whole world blind. I think in the broadest national interest, GST bill should be passed without any further delay. Mr. Chairman, sir, let me conclude by quoting Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar again in the same historic speech that he delivered on 25th of November 1949 before the Constituent Assembly. He had said, and this is very interesting, he was talking about whether we will be able to maintain our freedom. He said, what would happen to India's independence? Will she maintain her independence or will she lose it once again? It is not that India has never been an independent country. The point is that she once lost the independence that she had. Will she lose it second time? Then he says, will the history repeat itself? It is a thought which fills my mind, fills me with anxiety. This anxiety, and this is the important part, this anxiety is deepened by the realization of the fact that in addition to our enemies in the form of castes and creeds, we are going to have many political parties with diverse and opposing political creeds. Will Indians, this is the crux, will Indians place the country above their creed, or will they place their creed above the country? I do not know, but this much is certain, that if the parties place creed above country, our independence will be put in jeopardy a second time and probably be lost forever. I think we will all do very well to remember Dr. Ambedkar's sage counsel. Thank you very much, sir.
धन्यवाद.